Hello, good evening or good day. For me, it's good night, really, or good evening. Gute Nacht. Now, today I want to talk about something that I do not think the American people is understanding or is even prepared to understand. This is about a comment that I made in another stream, in another YouTuber's channel, All Shots, okay? Where he was talking about what's happening in the markets in the US and whatever because of the tariffs and all of this shit. Now, look, you have to understand this. Right now, in this moment, the US is experiencing something called a loss of market. Okay, both in imports and exports. So, the US has a deficit of needed importations that are needed for the local consumers and manufacturers that buy them, and also of those products that people and factories and industry and manufacture and restoration and all of that need the manpower, components, you know, everything that from I don't know from the toy you buy in the shop to the person to serve you coffee, to the components of the cookies you eat, you know, and then you are also experiencing the lack of components that are made elsewhere, components that are made in Europe, that are made in Mexico, that are made in Canada, in so many places in the world. So, what you are now experiencing is that a deficit. Add to that the fact that the US is also enduring my cat. Uh, the first effects of the negative behavior, I even wrote this down so I wouldn't forget, of its policies, especially of the authorities in the border forces. Okay, my cat owns me. And what is this causing? Number one, tourism. Tourists aren't coming because they are afraid, because they can go elsewhere. Why would you go to the US and take the risk of being jailed, being deported, not even deported to your own country, but to some kind of South American gulag? Why would you? Travel agencies around here, in a lot of places in Europe, I saw, I talked with someone that works in a travel agency here. They are not recommending people take trips to the US. They are replacing those trips. Traveling, for example, to Canada, Ontario, Quebec, mm, and Mexico, the historical sites, the beach sites, you know, some beach sites you Americans also like. Not sure if you are going to be very welcome there. No, I'm not a Mexican, so it's for them to tell you. Because tourism in the US is a nightmare. Because even with the Estes, even with the visas, even with absolutely all of the paperwork correct, you take a chance. Now, you take an even greater chance if you're dark skinned, or if you don't look like a typical white European. But I'll tell you this, even me, I'm lily white. I look like a postcard of bleach. I turn red in the sun, you know. But even me, I would not set a foot in the US for tourism or anything at all, really. The border patrol, or border guard, or whatever you call them, and there goes the cat. Sorry for this minor interruptions. But what you are doing, what you are creating, is a climate of intimidation, of uncertainty, and that does not benefit at all your tourism business. I said this in another in another video, I think, or in a post, and it's actually safer to go to China or even Iran than to go to the US. You ask me why? Well, I'll tell you. Because when I go to those places, not me, I'm not traveling right now. I won't be traveling for a long time. But right now, when you go to those places, you know exactly what you can count with. Do you understand? You know the rules, you know how things work. You are given clear rules on how you must behave, even dress. It's a bit more restrained for women in Iran, for example. But you know, even if you go to North Korea, for God's sake. But when you go to the US, imagine this. This happened to a Portuguese citizen. I don't recall if he was born in the US or if he went there with 2 or 3 years. No, a kid, a guy. He has the permanent green card. The only charges he ever had, I think it was because he was caught smoking pot or something underage, whatever, some crap like that. And that guy, that I think he's living with an American girl that has a permanent visa. He has a green card. He's living there like a citizen. Probably will marry with a girl and end up like so many thousands of Portuguese with the double nationality. With the Portuguese nationality and the American nationality. A guy that is working, paying his taxes, living his life, doing nothing wrong, that has lived his entire life in the US. He goes out of the country for some vacation times. He comes back, and he and his girlfriend get arrested. And his family doesn't even know where he is. And they're so desperate, they ask for the aid of the Portuguese embassy. And the Portuguese embassy trying to do whatever they can in cooperation with other EU countries. And this is one case. You have things like those two German girls arrested, strip searched, put in a detention center with criminals, and then deported. And you expect people to go to the US, work in the US, pay taxes in the US, contribute to your country, do tourism there. Why? You don't want us there. You have made it quite clear you have no issues and you treat everyone equally as badly. You arrest, in that sense, you're very democratic. You arrest white Europeans, you arrest Asians, you arrest brown people, you arrest South American people, you arrest everyone because your police in the border, they are morons, idiots, bigots, racists, dumbasses. I don't even think they are racist. I think they are really dumb, ignorant, because there is a profit to be made in detaining these people. I was watching the news, international news, in German, and I just saw. I think it. I don't recall if it was a Swiss channel or whatever, because I watch a lot of channels. In English, in German, in French, in Spanish, Castilian, sorry, in Portuguese, Italian, whatever. I'm a bit of an hyperactive person, so I sometimes have it all in whatever, just to numb my mind sometimes. And ICE raided the house of US citizens that kept on telling them that they were US citizens, and they dragged them out of their house in their underwear, took their laptops, took their phones, iPads, whatever, their money, and left. And it was a mistake. But it will take. They broke things in the house, locks, they broke glass windows, they broke things in the house. And those people will take weeks to recover, if they will recover, their property. And they're left alone in this situation, no money to pay rent, nothing, alone. And none of you thinks this is a bit not normal, and you want me sitting here in Portugal, near the beach, near beautiful cities, with normal people. You want me to spend my time and my money in your country. Would you? Just a question. Would you? Not me? No. Because, not because I'm afraid, but because I can't be bothered to give a cent to people like you. Sorry. Ever since Mr. Trump took over office, I, my family, my friends, even some of my colleagues that I talk with, people in the street or in the supermarket I know, and sometimes we talk, we have been boycotting American products. And I'm not talking about the stuff that you were still able to export, because that has been dead for a long time, because your cars are inferior. And I say this with complete, it's not a prejudice thing. It's constant. It's admitting a fact. Your cars are inferior. They are inferior to European cars. They are inferior to Korean and Japanese cars, for example. They are even inferior to some Chinese cars. Even when I was a kid, American cars, my dad, no, we had bakeries, we needed cars, vans, and trucks to transport goods to where we were selling them. Our bread, our cakes, whatever. Even when I was a kid, my dad always said the same thing. No American cars. And you want to know why? They drank too much fuel. They had inferior mechanics to Asian cars or European cars. But in this area, it was always Japanese cars that were better. Nissan, Isuzu, for example. All good brands of good Sherpa, all good brands of cars and vans that were practical, simple to repair, not as expensive as American cars to repair, and their fuel consumption was far less. And you want to know why Europeans still continue to buy some of your products? Because we were friends, and you help your friends. Because this is how we work. We help our friends because it is morally correct to do it and also politically correct to do it. And what did you do? What did you do? Spat on our faces. What would you do? Probably much more than what we are doing, which is basically riding the storm and taking care of our own business. So you can tell Mr. Vance that Europe is taking care of its business, and that we won't ask for the USA to do anything. I would repeat the words of some European politicians that say the this alliance is dead, and the US was one that killed it. And if you think this will go away after Mr. Trump leaves office, if he leaves office, you don't know history very well now, do you? Let me tell you the basic difference between a North European and a South European. And I can tell you this because I have both cultures in me. I even have a little more of North European than South European. But I live in South Europe, and my culture, of course, is also Portuguese. Mainly Portuguese and German, but Portuguese. And this is the difference. This was told to me by my grandfather a long time ago. Uh, in Europe, when you don't want to have any conflicts with someone, when you want to keep a kind of a social peace and not having disputes and conflicts and what issues, problems, what you do is when you have issues with a person, the most common way to deal with it is to ignore said person, even if that person is your family member. You ignore him or her, whatever. You understand? So you don't talk about that person. You pass him in the street. You don't say good morning, good afternoon, whatever. You don't reply to that person when they try to engage with you. You you don't seek actively to damage or hurt or whatever that person. No, you simply cut that person out of your life. And this is very common in all European cultures, even those idiots of the Russians. This is very common. This is how you do it when you don't want to have conflicts and issues and whatever. And you know what is the single difference between the North Europeans and the South Europeans? It's this. The South Europeans will look at you, smile, turn your back on you, go away, and ignore you. The North Europeans will look at you, turn their backs on you, and ignore you without smiling. Any European that is listening to me right now knows it is so. Of course, this is a stereotype. No, naturally, there are South Europeans that don't like to smile, and North Europeans that like to smile. Okay, and this is exactly what will happen to the US. We will keep things clean, stable. If you don't try to arrest us, we won't arrest you, but we will ignore you. We won't keep on buying your inferior tech, your inferior cars, or your good cars, or your superior tech, whatever. We won't buy that. We won't have nothing to do with it. We will ignore you. And as this progresses, it will pass on to other things. It will pass on to the your food chains, your products. It's already happening here. Let me be clear. But and then it will pass to your companies. We are already looking and creating alternatives to it. Then it will pass to your culture, your music, your movies, whatever, which is also a very important industry for your country too. And this is what will happen because it's not just the older generations or middle age generations that are saying this. The kids are saying it too. And I would be worried about that because those kids, uh, they will be the ones running Europe in the future. And this will be a Europe that is, as we can see right now, a rearmed Europe, a Europe that won't care that much about you. There will always be a difference of treatment between, for example, the US and China. That will, of course, of the natural cultural ties, even ethnic ties. But what will happen is this simply ignoring, oh, you're doing this, you're doing that, whatever. You don't want to be a part of the World Health Organization or whatever, whatever. Or you want to go fight a war in the Middle East, your issue. No, can you use your base? No, no. You won't use our bases to go do your crap negotiations with your allies. Go ask them. Don't ask us. Oh, we need some intelligence cooperation in this and that. Okay, write it down in a little paper, send it to us, and we will consider it. This is not right now, you understand, because this will be progressive. But again, going back to the beginning of my comment, of my video, you have to understand that if you read history, You see how these things happen. You see what happens when countries isolate themselves. When countries take this type of attitudes your president, your government is taking. And frankly, we could all say we could care less. But we are still caring a bit. But I don't know how long will that take. Because if the situation continues this way, and it will continue, I am convinced that you probably will get rid of Trump and find someone else, and you will have more or less of a stable government. But when that person, sorry, it's my allergies, when that person takes power, it will be an entire different USA. You will still probably have a big army and whatever, but let me ask you this. What is a good army worth when you can feed it or supply it, you know, arm it? Do you have any idea where your arms industry sources the weapons you use? Do you know a company, for example, do you know a company called Heckler and Koch? It's not American. Do you know how many of the parts for your jets, for your military jets, come from elsewhere? I'll give you a hint. Even Portugal was sending some of the parts for your jets. Not much, but we were sending some things also. Panels or electric panels or whatever. I can't recall. Sorry, because I didn't pay much attention to it. And when I do this, I sometimes have a little paper here to recall me of my comment, but little more. And going back to this situation, what do you think will happen to your transport industries? Your truckers, your haulers of cargo, your trains, your airplane companies, your airlines, sorry, it's airlines, right? What do you think will happen to them? They are going to have to cut costs. Some of you seem to be very interested in seeing the flow of ships with containers online. Do you know China can subsidize their shipping companies? So instead of shipping any goods to you to find other markets, which they are doing it, or in alternative, if they are still not ready to do it, to simply subsidize their boats, their companies to remain in port. Do you know that? Do you know that even if it's legally different, Europe can do the same too? That the medicine that you receive, indeed, that you are paying tariffs on it, by the way. Say thank you to Mr. Trump. In your antibiotics, in your insulin, in your medical machines. Do you know for example, the European Commission can just say these are essential goods, essential products, essential services, whatever, and we cannot outsource, and we cannot export them. That law, by the way, is already here. It was approved by all member states, and it was before this. I think it was around, I don't know, early January of 2024, something like that, which is a simple law that says this. Whenever there is a shortage of something, for example, oranges, medicine, in one country, if another country has enough to export, instead of exporting, that country must sell to the country in the EU that needs it. And this is a way of keeping our markets supplied and not have breakdowns of supply chains. Do you know what this means? For example, you want to import a ton of eggs from Portugal, and Portugal actually has the eggs to sell. But Portugal gets a message from, for example, from, I don't know, let's say France. And France says, look, we need a ton of eggs. We know you have an excess of eggs. We need it to sell to us. And Portugal, by law, instead of sending that ton of eggs to you, will send it to France, and vice versa. Even if we lose money, and if we lose money, the EU mechanism will find a way to compensate our traders. It's not us, it's the people that are selling the eggs. This is the world you are living in. You are not living in a world where you can do absolutely everything. And I know this video is being a bit long, no, but I think there are very important things that you should understand. Understand this: French and especially German companies, car companies, and and I'm just talking about the cars right now. They have factories in the US. For now, Subaru, which is Korean, I think, or Japanese. I don't. I'm sorry. I'm very bad with car brands. They have already said they are closing down their plants in the US because it is cheaper for them to simply invest in another hub or even in their home hub and then sell to the US than making the cars in the US because of the tariffs of the goods. Tariffs, by the way, that your president uh, announces that he is removing, but that other countries are keeping. Why? Because no one can plan a business in a 30 days notice, especially things like plants and factories, whatever, that require a steady supply chain. Now, when these factories leave, it's not just the X amount of employees, sorry, bit tired, employees that work in that plant. It's also a question of all the companies that, for example, like here in Portugal, where we have, I believe, we don't have many car manufacturers, but we do have them, and they have a lot of smaller companies that, for example, assemble parts, clean parts, import parts, you know, uh, sell certain parts of the car, even some that do a specific part of the completion of the vehicle, others that transport them. So it's not just that those, I don't know, X amount, let's call it 800 workers that work in that plant and their families. It's not just that. It's all these little companies that I told you that are dependent or working a great deal to those big plants and their workers and their families. And it's the owner of the diner. It's the city that collects taxes on that company. It's the state that collects taxes on that company. It's a never ending of connections. You know? from the diner, the restaurant, whatever, where the employees go to have their lunch, or I don't know, or the fast food they order, whatever, you understand. The events they might have, I don't know, baseball leagues, you Americans seems to like that very much, all of that. And my cat wants to sleep. It's it's all of those little connections that people seem to not understand. And in the case of the US in the future, you have a situation where the bond of trust, will be broken. Will it be repaired? Hell, I don't know. I'm not. I don't believe in people that see the future. Neither do I. I believe in logic. Some things are predictable, and if this continues like it's continuing, and it seems it will, if it stops right now, it will be easier to repair some things. But there are things that will never, no, they will never end. I Nietzsche is a part of my education a great deal. I learned a lot with Friedrich Nietzsche, and there is one of his, let's call one of his one thing people always like to quote about him, but it's this expression where he says to a friend that I am not angry or sad, I don't recall, angry or sad that you lied to me. I am, in fact, angry and sad because I know I can no longer trust you. And this will be the reaction to the US everywhere in the world. And in the end of this joke, the most benefit parties are China. China is going to profit immensely with this. In a smaller measure, because we are not formally taking advantage of anything, because that is not the way we work, it's Europe. The EU already has an agreement with the Central Asian countries. It also has agreements with China. We are dealing with China like the US should deal also, instead of doing the crap that it is doing. And other countries will rise. It's natural, you know. Just like European empires fell, this one will fall. In the future, in the future, China will fall. Everything will fall. Everything will change because change is inevitable. And the longer you insist in trying to do things this way, the worse it will be. The next president of the United States of America will have to control the fall so that it will not be too abrupt, too extreme to end the country per se. But the country has lost and will lose a great deal of its soft power. In Europe, I don't think the US even has soft power right now. Because even if people nod and smile, like I told you, remember what I told you about it? They will be trying to ignore you and only deal with you when needed, on a need to know basis, let's call it like this. So I think you have to reflect on this because all I see is some people mocking others, other people complaining why they are mocking us, other people saying they are wrong, and other people persisting in supporting this type of things. this type of attitudes of your president and of your government and whatever. I think you should really reflect and solve this as quickly as possible. And the only persons that can do it are you. No one will magically appear from the outside and solve your problems, the problems that you created. Because what is happening now is the result of hatred, it's the result of resentment, it's the result of entitlement, it's the result of unlike an average European that can identify almost all countries in the world, or at least with a vague idea of where it is and how it is. Most Americans don't even know the state they live in. So, since my kitty is telling me I need to go to sleep, I will go to sleep if I can. I sincerely hope that you do not take this video as an offense, as a mocking of the Americans, because it's not. Take it as it is. And good luck to you all. And since you are all claiming to be very religious and very Christian, at least the ones committing the mistakes right now, uh, Jesus said, do unto others as you would like to be done unto you. Good night.